The nights felt heavier than usual, as if silence itself was pressing down on my bedroom walls. I would toss and turn, sweat prickling my skin, until the dream came again. It was always the same. Marcus, my husband, standing under a dim light, smiling in a way that wasn't meant for me. Another woman stood beside him, their fingers laced together like a secret promise. My chest tightened each time, the air refusing to fill my lungs. I jolted awake, my heart racing as if I had been running through a nightmare I couldn't escape. The sheets clung damp against my body, and the clock on the nightstand mocked me with its relentless ticking. I wasn't just startled, I was shaken to the core by something that felt too real. When I finally caught my breath, Marcus would be there, pretending calm. "It's just a dream," he'd say, his voice flat, almost rehearsed. He'd brush off my trembling hands, dismiss the fear in my eyes. But the unease didn't vanish. It lingered, seeping into my mornings, whispering to my heart that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't only a dream after all. Each night, the dream came back sharper, like my mind was trying to etch the betrayal deeper into me. I saw Marcus's hand squeeze hers, his laughter rising like smoke, drifting farther away from me until they both disappeared into the dark. I'd wake with the echo of it still ringing in my ears, my pulse hammering as though I had been left behind in some cruel reality. I tried to push it aside, telling myself I was being silly, that dreams don't mean anything. But my gut told a different story. It wasn't just the dream. It was the way it clung to me long after morning came, filling the air like an unspoken truth. It felt less like imagination and more like a warning I couldn't ignore. Marcus, though, never flinched. He'd shake his head, kiss my forehead, and roll back to sleep as if nothing had disturbed him. His calm only made me more uneasy, as if he knew something I didn't. And I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the question that refused to leave me. What if my dream wasn't a dream at all? The more I tried to convince myself it was nothing, the stronger the dream gripped me. It wasn't random. It repeated with precision, the same laugh, the same touch, the same vanishing into the shadows. It felt like my subconscious was screaming at me, painting a picture I wasn't ready to face. In the daylight, I caught myself studying Marcus differently. The curve of his smile, the way he avoided my eyes when I mentioned the dream, even the slight stiffness in his shoulders. Little things I'd ignored before suddenly stood out, like puzzle pieces I hadn't realized were scattered around me. By the third week, I couldn't pretend anymore. The dream wasn't fading. It was growing bolder, feeding off my doubt. And even though Marcus kept brushing it off, I knew deep down this wasn't just my imagination. Something was waiting for me beneath the surface, and I was about to find out what it was. It started with the small things, the kinds of details you'd miss if you weren't already suspicious. Marcus began coming home later, always with the same excuse about work piling up. At first, I nodded along, telling myself he was just stressed. But my gut twisted tighter every time he walked through the door past midnight, his shirt smelling faintly of something sweet and floral, a perfume I didn't own. I tried to brush it off, telling myself not to spiral, but then I noticed how he always kept his phone face down. It was like he was guarding it, shielding it from my eyes. Every ping, every vibration seemed to send a flicker across his face before he quickly slid it into his pocket. That wasn't the behavior of a man with nothing to hide. The worst part was how familiar it all felt. My dreams had planted the seeds, but real life was watering them now. Every late night, every faint trace of perfume, every secretive glance. It was as if the line between my dreams and reality was blurring. And I couldn't help but wonder if my subconscious had known the truth long before I did. I told myself to stop being paranoid, to stop letting the dreams control me. But the more I tried to silence that voice, the louder it screamed. I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at his empty chair, wondering if he was really where he said he'd be. The coffee would go cold in my hands while my mind replayed those images from the night before. Marcus laughing with someone who wasn't me. He made it sound so reasonable whenever I questioned him. Deadlines, he'd sigh, loosening his tie, acting exhausted. But exhaustion doesn't explain perfume. Exhaustion doesn't explain the way he'd shower the second he walked through the door, as if washing something away before I could smell it, before I could see it. I began noticing patterns. The late nights weren't random. They happened on the same days, the same times, as if scheduled. And every time, I'd lie awake long after he fell asleep, my body tense, my dreams replaying the betrayal that felt less like fantasy and more like a memory waiting to surface. By then, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. Dreams don't come back night after night without reason, and life doesn't hand you coincidences wrapped in perfume and half-truths. My heart told me what my head tried to deny. Something was wrong, and Marcus's calm dismissals were only making it worse. Each time I closed my eyes, the dream sharpened, like my subconscious was begging me to wake up to reality. His laugh with her grew louder, the way their hands fit together clearer. I'd jolt awake with the echo of it, and lying in the dark, I realized I wasn't just scared of losing him. I was scared of losing myself in the lies. That's when the decision formed inside me, quiet but unshakable. If my dreams refused to let me rest, then I'd find out why. No more brushing it off, no more letting Marcus's excuses soothe me back into doubt. I needed answers, and I was ready to follow the whispers that had haunted me for weeks. The first clue came almost by accident. I was doing laundry when a folded receipt slipped out of his pocket. My heart thudded as I unfolded it. 2 glasses of wine, a dinner for 2, dated on one of his so-called late work nights. I stood frozen in the laundry room, the hum of the dryer filling the silence, and I knew this wasn't paranoia anymore. From then on, I started paying attention. I tracked his routines, his patterns, the way he always left at the same time on Fridays, the way his mood shifted before those nights, lighter, almost excited. I downloaded a simple tracking app, and suddenly, his office location didn't look like an office at all. It was a breadcrumb trail, leading me closer to the truth. I became quieter around him, careful not to let on that I was watching. He thought my silence meant I had let the dream go, but in reality, I was collecting pieces, one by one, like shards of glass that would eventually cut through the lies. And each step brought me closer to the moment I both dreaded and needed. One night, I couldn't resist anymore. I waited until Marcus left, his usual Friday exit wrapped in another excuse about meetings that would run late. My hands trembled as I grabbed my keys, but I told myself this was the only way I'd ever get peace. I kept my headlights low and followed from a distance, every turn tightening the knot in my stomach. He didn't drive toward the office. Instead, he headed across town, to a cozy restaurant glowing warm under strings of lights. My throat went dry as I pulled into a dark corner of the lot, just close enough to see him step out of the car with a spring in his walk I hadn't seen in months. And then she appeared, a woman I'd never laid eyes on, dressed with a softness that clashed painfully with the sharpness inside me. They didn't hesitate, not even for a second. He reached for her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. And right there, under that glowing canopy, he leaned in and kissed her. Time stopped in that moment. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My chest burned, not just with anger, but with the sick realization that my dreams hadn't been warnings. They had been reflections of reality, replaying what my heart already knew. Seeing it with my own eyes was like being struck by lightning. I watched them laugh together, the same laugh that had haunted my sleep. Every detail matched, the tilt of his head, the way his hand lingered on hers, the closeness that once belonged to me. It was as if my subconscious had been whispering the truth all along, and now it screamed in my face. But instead of storming inside, I stayed still. My tears blurred the windshield, but a strange calm washed over me. If I confronted him now, he'd twist it, deny it, make me doubt myself again. No, I needed more than anger. I needed proof. And in that quiet rage, my revenge began to take shape. After that night, I became meticulous. Every chance I got, I documented what I saw. Photos of receipts, screenshots of his location, videos from the restaurant. My phone became a vault of betrayal, each file a brick in the wall I was building against him. It wasn't enough to know the truth. I wanted the truth undeniable, unshakable, impossible to dismiss with a smirk and a lie. Marcus carried on as if nothing had changed, as if his secret life wasn't unraveling behind him. He still kissed my cheek when he left, still mumbled excuses about working late. Little did he know, each word he spoke was another rope tightening around his own neck, and I waited, patient, silent, preparing for the perfect moment. The opportunity came when he decided to host a small dinner at our house. Friends, a few family members, the kind of evening where he loved playing the charming husband. I smiled, set the table, poured the wine, all while the evidence sat waiting in my pocket. He thought he was in control, but the stage was mine. The night began like any other gathering. Laughter floated through the air, glasses clinked, the aroma of roasted herbs filled the room. Marcus thrived in moments like this, holding court, flashing his easy smile, convincing everyone he was the devoted husband and gracious host. I played my part too, moving between guests with practiced warmth, hiding the storm churning inside me. But beneath the small talk and the clinking of silverware, I felt my pulse quicken. I knew what was about to happen, and the anticipation was electric. My phone rested in my hand under the table, already connected to the television. One tap was all it would take to strip away his mask. I kept glancing at Marcus, studying his confidence, savoring the irony. When the moment arrived, glasses raised, a toast hanging in the air, I tapped the screen. The room stilled. Instead of cheerful music, the television lit up with the grainy glow of my video. Marcus at the restaurant, leaning across the table, kissing her like I didn't exist. Gasps filled the space, forks froze midair, and Marcus's face drained of color. For a long second, no one breathed. Marcus stuttered, his words tripping over themselves as he scrambled for an excuse. There's an explanation, but his voice cracked under the weight of the silence pressing in from every corner of the room. His charm, his carefully curated image, collapsed in front of his friends and family. I stood, calm as if I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. I raised my glass, my hand steady, my voice sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Funny," I said, letting the quiet stretch. "I saw this in my dreams before I ever saw it in real life." The words echoed, heavier than the clink of any toast. Then I reached into my bag and placed the divorce papers neatly on the table in front of him. His face crumbled, and whispers rippled through the room like fire catching dry grass. I didn't flinch. For the first time in weeks, I felt a deep, steady breath fill my lungs. This wasn't just revenge, it was freedom. The days that followed felt strangely quiet, as if the chaos had finally released me. Marcus tried to call, tried to explain, but his words no longer carried weight. The scandal spread faster than I expected. Friends stopped answering him. Family looked at him differently, and the woman he had clung to so desperately vanished the moment the spotlight turned harsh. I moved through the house like it was mine again, not a stage for his lies. I packed his things carefully, each box sealing away a chapter I no longer wanted to reread. Signing the divorce papers wasn't painful, it was liberating. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't living in his shadow. I was stepping back into my own light. Nights were the biggest change. I went to bed without dread, without bracing myself for the dream that had haunted me for so long. The silence was different now, peaceful, almost tender. And when I closed my eyes, I didn't see betrayal waiting in the dark. I saw something else, the outline of freedom taking shape. Morning light became my companion again. I'd wake to the golden glow spilling through the curtains, stretch beneath the sheets, and smile without forcing it. The heaviness on my chest was gone, replaced by a calm I hadn't realized I was craving. Even making coffee felt different. The simple act of pouring it into my favorite mug became a ritual of reclaiming myself. There were moments of sadness, of course. Memories don't vanish overnight. Sometimes I'd catch myself remembering the man I thought Marcus was, and a pang would hit me. But instead of breaking me, those moments reminded me how strong I had been to face the truth. They weren't chains anymore. They were lessons carved into my skin. Friends called to check in, some offering pity, others admiration. I didn't need either. What I needed was exactly what I had. The quiet assurance that I had chosen myself. That choice became my anchor. And every day, the echo of my old nightmare faded a little more, replaced by the sound of my own laughter filling the house. One morning, I pulled the curtains wide open and let the sun flood the room. The warmth kissed my face, and for the first time in months, I felt completely alive. No shadows lurking, no dreams waiting to strangle me in the night, just the bright promise of a new beginning. My reflection in the glass didn't look broken anymore. It looked whole. That night, I slept soundly. No tossing, no jolting awake with a racing heart. My dreams were quiet, gentle even, filled with images of open skies and laughter I could finally call my own. The kind of rest that comes only when you stop fighting against the truth and start walking with it. As I woke the next morning, sunlight brushing over my skin, I whispered the words that had been waiting to be said. My nightmare ended the moment I stopped ignoring my instinct. And with that, I knew. I wasn't haunted anymore. I was free.